Thank you so much, ladies.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us, man. I think this is going to be a really informative conversation for people.
Mm.
And Danae and I both definitely have some questions we want to ask you.
Nice.
But can we start with we always love to kind of start with every guest taking us through how you got to be kind of who you are and where you're at right now. Obviously, we've kind of read your bio. We know that there was a pretty big life change for you, which feels like it will be resonant for a lot of people out there. I know it is for me.
Mm.
But I would just love for you to take us through, yeah, like what that journey was for you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I was living in New York City. I had built a life for myself. I was about what age? 33, around
Mhm.
33. And I I had my first daughter, which definitely was a wake up moment for me because now instead of just I'm doing my thing, I'm going to work, I'm building this career and these things I was doing. It was a choice now.
Mm.
Do I want to go do that or would I rather be with my daughter?
Mm.
And if I'm going to go do that, is it worth it? Like is it the thing that is worth not spending my time with her, right? So when I looked at that, it was no longer worth it. I remember
Mm.
sitting on conference calls and just being like, "Oh my god, I don't care. I don't care
Mhm.
about any of this,
Mhm.
It doesn't matter." And so I saw the trajectory of my life. I saw where I would what kind of like the train I was on, and it didn't match with whatever was happening inside of me,
Mm.
which was definitely an awakening of God, I really want to feel on purpose. I'd love to
Mm.
feel passionate about what I'm doing. I'd love to model for my daughter
Mm.
what it looks like to be alive and to like truly be in enjoyment of my life. And I don't think I'm on that train right now. I think,
Mm.
I can see where this is going. I don't think this is where we want to go. So then it was like, okay, well, if I was to start over, if I was to get on a different train, what would that look like? And so the decision was made. And I was married at the time.
Mhm.
And we were kind of going through this awakening moment, like at the same time, which is, I think, pretty unusual. I don't know whatever confluence of events that made that happen. But basically, we decided to leave New York, quit the career, which I was an owner of the company. So it was more than just a career. Like I had
Wow.
actually helped to build this company. And so then it was like, where would we want to go? So Hawaii had been a place that we had loved forever. We
Mm.
had gone every year with his family. And it was like, and every time we'd be like, why are we leaving?
Yeah.
Like we get there, it's like, why are we leaving? So then
Mm.
finally, this one time when we were in this process, it was like, all right, let's just do it. Let's go
Mhm.
for it. Sold everything we owned, you know, made the big migration to Hawaii. And this was the beginning of a serious breakdown period that lasted like 4 or 5 years, really,
Mm.
where every single thing that I had built in my life, the aspects of my identity that I was really attached to, like the corporate businesswoman, the successful businesswoman, the one who like gets things done, all that, it was it was it all was falling away. And
Mm.
and I can go into a lot more detail, but I don't need to. You get the point. Like it was I was going through a series of initiations and trials and tribulations that were just stripping it away. Eventually that led to divorce with this my college sweetheart, thought we would be married until, our golden years and near bankruptcy. So like
Mm.
again, everything that I had built, it was just nothing that I did before was working anymore in the
Mm.
way that it worked. And I was having to find a new way to navigate the world and a new center place within myself from which to create. And so I'm saying this in hindsight, but in the process, it just felt like a total cluster. You know what I'm saying? Just like, oh my
Mhm.
God, like I am a failure. My life has totally fallen apart.
Mm.
Who am I? What am I doing? What's the point of all this? In that period of time, astrology came into my life. It was totally just this coincidence. I had a friend from New York who's like, I just had this reading with this woman. I think she's in Hawaii. She might be close to you.
Mm.
I look her up online. Not only is she in Hawaii, but she's on the same island. Not only is she on the same island, but she's like 15 minutes away from me. So I have an in person reading, which these days is, very rare. And it was just this moment of like, oh my God,
Mhm.
like there is a point to all of this.
Mm.
There is a reason why I'm going through all of this. And what I was able to glean from that was that not only was there a point, but there was an end. And at the end, I could, if I made a series of choices, I could emerge more me, more purposeful, more on fire, more passionate, more helpful to the world
Mm.
than ever before.
Yeah.
But that I had to go through this period of time. And it actually was sort of like written, it like if you had looked at this chart when I was a child, you could have seen that there would be this confluence of events that would be a time of major transformation in my life. So it's not that I messed up. It's not that I was a complete failure. It was part of my evolutionary journey and path.
I love that. That right there is the kicker for people. Is like, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't
Yes,
screw up. It's
yes.
it's it's in a certain way almost destined that we're gonna have this struggle, and that doesn't mean something's wrong with me.
And I would venture to say not even almost destined,
Mhm.
absolutely destined. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like absolutely destined. And the choice point is always, so you can look at a chart and see there's going to be this confluence of energies that looks like the underlying theme of that confluence of energies is transformation, for example.
Mm.
We get to choose. We get to choose how we dance with that energy. So I could have let all of these things happen and be the end of me. I mean, I could have gone into the depths and darkness of despair and stayed there. But through the exercising of free will, this is where free will does come in. It's a series of choices of like, okay, this is horrible, this is hard, this I'm crying every single day, I'm getting in my car and I'm screaming and I'm swearing in my car because it's the only place where nobody can hear me, but like there's that much pain. And I know it's going to be okay in the end. I
Mm.
know this is part of the process of transformation, I know, but I didn't always know. It was like I think feel like the perfect messengers come into your life, the perfect, if you're looking for it, the
Mhm.
perfect people to help shepherd you through that, the perfect, thing you read in a book, the perfect podcast you land on, like cheaper
Mhm.
than therapy, it comes into your life right at that moment where you really need it. So anyways, that's basically my story. So astrology came into my life. I had this opportunity to start Astrology Hub, which is a whole nother story in its own. It was very synchronistic. It was very
Mm.
much like, oh my God, yes, that's the answer. Like, I'm passionate about this. I know it helps people because it's helped me. I'd love to build something around it. I don't know what any of that means, but yes, like it's just a yes. And so that was 2015. And now we're here in 2023 and it's grown beyond my
Mm.
wildest expectations.
Beautiful. I love the language that you speak as you talk about this process, Amanda, and that you talk about it as a series of initiations. Because I think there's so much about our society that holds what, at one time in history would have been normalized as these are us being initiated into the next stages of our development. We see them as like having a breakdown or, like you're just like lost and really, really struggling. And you are, but you're maybe losing the idea of what you were meant to be or the conceptualization of your life as you'd held it up to this point and becoming the next iteration of self that, as you said, you were always meant to become.
And it's so interesting when you look at astrology. So there's your personal chart, right? There's your personal blueprint.
Mm.
There's the personal configuration of energetic frequencies that's active and alive in you.
Mm.
And then as you go through life, the 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 cosmos keeps moving, the universe keeps moving. So there's this like, I always think of it as like a screenshot of the
Mm.
moment of your birth. It is like the picture of the sky at the very moment and location of your birth, right? It's a screenshot. And it's like,
Yep.
boom, it's like this imprint on you, in you. It's not on you, it's in you. And then life, the planets and the stars and they keep moving and they pull out these different aspects of you as you go throughout your life, and they magnetize certain experiences to you as you go throughout your life. And so there's the understanding of like the nuances of you, which is it can get very technical and specific and very deep, right? But then there's these what I love to call life cycle transits,
Mm.
the
Mhm.
these transits that we will all walk throughout our life. I mean, depending on how long our life is, right? But
Right.
there's the Saturn return at age, 28 to 30. There's the Pluto opposing Pluto. There's Neptune opposing Neptune, and the words don't even matter. But you walk through life, and you're gonna walk through these initiations. You're going to. And if you're aware of the invitation of that particular initiation, you can answer the call.
Right.
You can say, yeah, like I'm ready. The Neptune one, it feels like there's a fog. It's a very foggy period of time where you can't see much beyond the next step in front of you.
And is it similar to like the Saturn return? And I would love to have you give a little bit more kind of insight on that one, because I've had a few clients recently that they're so smack dab in the middle of it that I've actually sent them resources
Yeah.
on their Saturn return so they can
Yeah.
understand a little bit more about the context, in which they're living. Do you find that, I know Saturn return is about 28 to like what, 32 usually, but give or take, but like, is it like that with all of the lifetime transits where there's like certain ages that it tends
Yes.
to, okay.
Yes. And what's amazing, so we have in our culture, right, we call it the midlife crisis.
Mhm.
The stereotypical, the guy like divorces his wife and gets the red Corvette and goes off with the 20-year-old. That's like the stereotype of the midlife crisis.
Mhm.
But if you look at again, I'm going to use this word confluence. If you look at the confluence of energies that happens to everyone in the period of time between about 36 to 44, depending on your chart, it's different. There's like 3 cycles coming together at the very same time that are all about like, are you on the right path? Or have the decisions that you've made up until this moment been aligned with who you actually are? Are you in integrity with who you came here to be? Sometimes it requires like a shock of energy to like wake you up. And that would be the Uranus opposes Uranus. So Uranus is like this shocking energy that can come in. But the more aware you are, the less life has to like do that for you. You know what I'm saying? Like the more you're aware that like, okay, this period of time in my life is about the wake up call and is about these questions of like, am I on my path? Have I just been unconscious and on autopilot and making these decisions because that's what society told me to do? Or is there something else I'm here to do and be? And so that if you know, like, okay, 42 to 44, that's Uranus opposes Uranus for everyone. Now, exactly the nuance for your chart is going to depend on your chart, but approximately 42 to 44, there will be a wake up call unless you're already awake, unless you're already asking these questions, unless you're already navigating like that way. So yeah, the Saturn return at age about 28 to 30, again, depending on people's charts, you have another one in your 50s, you have the second Saturn return. And so if at that first Saturn return in age 20 to 30, you do the invitation of that, which is like, it's a time of adulting. It's a time of actually getting on, it's like taking responsibility for your physical reality, for, getting on a path that will help you to create the structures of your life that you want to create. Is that a family? Is that a career? Is that your geographic location? What is it? But making those decisions and kind of solidifying your presence here on the planet and saying like, I am here. I am responsible for my life. I am making decisions regardless of what my parents or, everybody told me to do. I'm doing what I'm here to do. Again, at age, let me check this right now. It's in your early 50s. Yeah. Oh, no, later 50s. So 56 to 58, you're going to have a second Saturn return. If you've taken, I call it the cosmic curriculum. If you've been mindful of the cosmic curriculum the whole time, that second Saturn return is your threshold to becoming the wise woman or man, the elder, the wise elder. You get to walk through that initiation at that point in your life when you've accepted the initiations all along. So and you still can if you haven't been aware, it's okay. But it will be a very natural evolution of your life if you've been walking through all those thresholds all along. And so whether it's astrology that's helping you do that or therapy that's helping you do that, because the astrology just gives a language, life experiences. you can completely walk through these thresholds having no clue about the astrology. It just can help to, to give you context of what's
Right.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny, Amanda. I was just facilitating a group before we came in where we were talking about walking the path of the nonconformist. And we were talking about that period of time you're talking about between age 36 to 44, where all of a sudden it feels like, Brene Brown talks about it, where life sort of like jolts you and it's like, I'm not messing around, like wake
Yes.
up. And I
Second
like
half
to
of
call
life.
it, yeah, like the midlife awakening, because it's like I've been sleepwalking through my life and all of a sudden life is like, this is not a dress rehearsal. Let's go. And I love the way that you talked about finding astrology, I think on your website, and you were saying, it just felt really supportive of you're not crazy. You're not alone in this. The cosmos is with you and supporting you. And I remember having my first natal chart reading and being like just weeping at like the extent to which it was like someone was telling me about me and why this was okay. And I think that's what people don't understand if you haven't had that experience of a reading, is it's just so like supportive of whatever this time is. You're not alone in this. This is actually like you're being supported through this path, this
Yes.
moment.
Yes. And again, I'm going to use that word. It's giving language to our
Mm,
experience where,
Mhm.
the soul is usually like, whispering to us, and we're getting, we can have a feeling or a resonance or that pull. And then to have a perfect stranger reveal to you in a language what
mhm,
that call is, or that pull is, or that whisper is, it's so confirming, like you said. And it's a good astrology reading when it's confirming something that you already knew deep inside, but maybe had a hard
mhm.
time articulating.
Yeah.
When it's off is when you walk away going, huh? Like
Mhm.
that's that didn't feel right. Like,
Mm,
or I am terrified now. Like that to me is either an irresponsible use of astrology,
mm,
or just a completely like not accurate use of astrology. Because again, astrology is it's describing your soul's intention and potential in this lifetime. So it's not going to feel like, ew, like
Mm.
yuck, oppressive, scary. But yes, it can be like, oh, like I got to gear up. Like there's a period of time where I need to like find more will forces within myself to meet the challenges ahead.
mm,
But not like, oh God, it's gonna hurt me and it's out against me. That's to
Right.
me when astrology gets warped. And I've experienced it when I've talked to people about having an astrology reading. A lot of times they're like, is the astrologer gonna tell me something bad? Am I
mm.
gonna
Mhm.
learn something horrible? It's like, no. Like it's just I want to like hug the person and be like, it's so natural to have that, like, oh God, is there something wrong with me that I'm gonna find out?
Mhm.
But it's not like that, and it's not gonna feel like that.
I
And I
also
know
think
that from hundreds of people that I've gotten to hear go through it.
I also think too that, similar to when I'm talking to people about finding a therapist, like so often people will come to me and they're like, "How do I find a great therapist?" And I usually explain it that it's similar to dating, right? Like you have to meet with a few people. What's the vibe? Like, do you connect energetically, right? Like, do you feel like they get you? Do you kind of, you know, and people will laugh at that, but it really is important that the relationship be one of understanding and really feeling kind of seen and understood. And that just means that we're not for everybody. That's not
Mm,
like that there's bad or, one therapist bad, one therapist is good. It's just that some people connect and some people don't. And I feel the same way about astrology. Like Danae and I both had a reading recently with one of your astrologers. And I had said to her that we have a good friend of ours who does astrology and she's brilliant. And there's often times where she will go deep into something and I find myself like, "Hey, you've lost me." Like, woo, 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 woo. Like there's nothing tangible. I can't grasp it. Like I can't put it, on the earth. And
mhm,
I know myself and I'm a very linear thinker and I'm very Taurian and I like things to kind of be very earthly and grounded. And this other astrologer that we just worked with through your network, I found to be very linear in the way that she thought and articulated what it was that she was extracting. And so I came away like, oh my God, that made so much sense. And then Danae, being kind of more of the circular person, was like, oh, I struggled. I struggled because it didn't feel as like resonant for me as far as like how she was articulating it, right? And
Right.
so all that to say, I also think that sometimes people have come to me and they've been like, "Oh, astrology doesn't make sense to me," or, I had this reading and it didn't land. And I might offer to them the same thing that I would offer if they had one bad encounter with a therapist and they're like, "Oh, therapy's not for me." And it's
Right.
like, well, maybe we experiment. Maybe we experiment with different people and different backgrounds and traditions and schooling and really see what fits or feels like it fits.
Well, you know that not all therapy is the same.
Totally.
Not all there's tons of different like there's different focuses and
Mhm.
emphasis. It's the same with astrology. There is definitely no one size astrology.
Totally.
There's astrology focused on your birth chart, your soul's evolution. There's astrology focused on your finances. There's
Mhm.
astrology designed to help you decide where are your power spots on the planet. Like, where does your particular wiring line up with the Earth's grid of energy? Like, there's so many different
Mm.
specialties. And so, yes, when people ask me who should they have a reading with, I do the same thing. And I'm almost like deer in a headlight, like, because I'm scanning like the person,
Mhm.
the astrologers I know. I'm trying to understand what question they have so I can get them with the right person who can help answer that right type of question. So that's why we even created that matchmaking quiz for
Mm.
our reading platform, because it's like, there are the people that want to go out into the cosmos and explore the outer edges of the universe and get super metaphysical. And there's astrologers who will go there with you.
Mm.
And then, like you, Vanessa, there's the ones who are like, no, just give me the tangible, the practical, the grounded. Like, I want the nuts and bolts. Like, say it to me in a language I can absolutely understand. So there's people that have different skill sets and gifts, and they're
Mhm.
better at one thing versus the other. So yes.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find this when before we hopped on and we had this conversation before about like transits being the thing that we focused on today in our conversation. I was saying to Danae, I think that most people who are new to astrology, right? They know the sun signs. That's kind of where most people's understanding stops. And then after that, it might get a little bit too technical for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I do feel like the transits are the thing. While many people I think have heard of the Saturn return, because I think it's almost like something that we throw around in like our everyday language. Maybe it's just the circles I run in. I don't know. Um, I think it is helpful to understand that there are these very specific spots
Mm.
along the points of your life that every one of us is going to be in some sort of change. And to your point, that could be struggle or not. It just depends on how you're coming into that transit. Um, I want to go back a little bit because I kind of lost you when you went from the Neptune into the Uranus. And I want to go back to that one because I feel like number one, Danae and I are both in that age range. Number two, a lot of our listeners are in that age range. Number three, a lot of my clients are in that age range. But so you said 42 to 44 is more of the Uranus. Is it the 36 to 42 where we're in the Neptune kind of
Okay.
I
space?
love that
So, well,
Vanessa's
see,
taking notes right now.
I
yeah,
am.
yeah, yeah. Well, we made a gift for you. We made a gift for you and your audience where we'll have this
Mhm.
broken down so you don't have to
Yes.
feel like you have to scribble it all down. The reason why it gets confusing with these ages is because they start to overlap each other. And
Yes. Okay.
where that whole, quote, I love midlife awakening. That's where
Mm.
this is all happening. So Pluto square Pluto, and let's just call it the time of upheaval,
Hmm.
age 36 to 39. I mean, for me, this was the height and the aftermath of divorce.
Mm.
So it was like massive upheaval, massive, like, well, actually, I'm doing this with my hands, like it's up. Pluto's more down. It's
Mm.
more like in the depths of the underworld. It's like, it's a lot of times we think of, you've built a house, right? And there's floorboards.
Mm.
We're in a Pluto transit. It's about taking the floorboards up and seeing what's underneath. Is there rot? Is there treasure?
Mm.
Is there both? Is there a little bit of both? And so what it's helping you do is create a new foundation, but first you got to go in and like see what's under there. If it's rot, okay, we got to replace all this stuff. If it's treasure, okay, let's grab it, but we're going to need to create a new structure that is on firm foundation, but you got to go through the Pluto first. So Pluto's the lord of the underworld. It's digging up all the shadow stuff, and
Mm.
so that's why it's the time of upheaval. It's not the most comfortable. of times, but it's definitely helping you go through a process of transformation that needs to happen, right?
Mm.
So a little bit overlapping on that is
Mhm.
the Neptune square Neptune, and this is
Okay.
the fog. So like it kind of feels a little bit unfair because you're like going through this upheaval, but you're also not really clear, right? You're not really clear. You don't have that like perfect vision for your life. You're literally being asked to navigate somewhat in the dark. And so this to me is where you're coming into a lot of your more intuitive knowing,
Mm.
a lot more of the more yin aspects of creation, where you are magnetizing to you things based on your frequency. And so it's less linear, it's less like do the goal thing and make the big huge strategy thing and go for it. It's more the like sitting in the dark, trusting that the next step will reveal itself, putting one foot in front of another. And a lot of it is about what are the qualities that you want this next phase of your life to to exude.
Mm.
What are the next quality? What are the qualities that you want to exude in this next phase of life? And how can you become more in alignment with those qualities? How that looks, what the outpicturing is, you might not know right now.
Mm.
That's okay. It's by design that you might be feeling your way a little bit. So this is happening. And then to top it all off, Uranus opposes Uranus, which is age 42 to 44, which is that wake up call. So this is Uranus can bring the shock waves. Uranus is associated with the lightning bolt.
Mm.
So it can be that like holy shit moment where lots of truth is revealed out of nowhere, or something happens that creates that sense of instant awakening. And so
Mhm.
age 42 to 44. And again, the more aware you are of where you're at in these phases, the less life has to hit you over the head with a 2x4.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's to me is the beauty and the gift of astrology. It's like, oh, thank you. Like, not that life isn't going to happen. It's not like this protection against life happening, but it is when it happens, it's less feeling like it's happening to you and knowing that you're in that cosmic curriculum in that period of time. So again, that when I say that the confluence of events happens in that 36 to 44 range, and they're all happening around the same time.
Mm.
49 to 51, you get some more. So 49 to 51 is the Chiron return.
Mm.
This is where those I'm sure in your archetypal psychological language, you touch on this a lot because Chiron is about that core wound,
Mhm.
that like deep abandonment or rejection or like not good enough, whatever that deep, deep core wound is that we feel like it feels like the one that never goes away, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, no matter what, this thing like rears its ugly head. This Chiron return period is the opportunity to really get to the root of that wound and really then start to use that wound as the medicine, right? Because Chiron is the wounded healer, but use that your understanding and your experience with that core wound to then help others with that wound. And again, some of us, this is where the nuances of the individual chart come in, because for some of us, these types of awakening happen earlier, and then this is just an echo of that happening again.
Mm.
So this is again where the nuances of who you are and your life curriculum comes in. But this period of time, the Chiron return, you definitely have this opportunity to revisit that core wound again and really have a new type of orientation around it. And then I brought up again the Saturn return around 56 to 58, this opportunity to really step into that mantle of wise man, wise woman, and take that position as an elder. And I don't mean old, I mean that elder wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point you spoke about Amanda as an invitation. And I love that, the universe is supporting us, the cosmos are supporting us in these stages of development and becoming, but it's an invitation that we can take or not. But what I find and what I love so much about depth psychology is that there's like when you have this framework of, and I love that Carl Jung used to look at the charts of almost all of his clients because it gave him a framework of where they were developmentally. But I think that when we don't answer the call, that's not without, I don't like, I'm looking for another word other than consequence because I don't want it to feel like it's punitive. But I think there are ways that that manifests, whether it's depression or whether it's like something somatic that happens in the body, because we are really, being supported in like, take this invitation if you like. But if we don't, and a lot of the societal structures, I believe, aren't necessarily supportive of us answering the call. And they
Mm.
do sort of make us feel like we're crazy and that there's something wrong with us. But that is not without like some way that that continues to play out if we don't take the invitation. Do you know what I mean?
We also don't have in our culture, we don't have the platform for healthy initiation anymore,
Mhm.
right? I mean, so many of the platforms that we used to use and have and rely upon have been stripped in this culture that we live in. So, so many of us are kind of out there floundering around without a platform to be experienced and to be held in those initiatory processes, right? Which is why therapy can be an amazing platform for initiation. I think even astrology in and of itself can be an amazing platform for initiation. It's like we have lost this connection to the numinous. We have lost this connection to the something larger than ourselves, right? And it has consequence. And I think what you're saying, Danae, I know what you're saying about not wanting to be punitive as like the word, but it does have consequence. It does, and I think what you're speaking to is that it's like if we can actually rely on something like astrology as an example or like therapy to provide that platform, we might be able to ease that consequence even just a little bit.
Maybe suffering. It comes with like deeper layers of
Suffering.
suffering internally, right?
It really does. And often it's at a soul level. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily like, those external consequences. It's more that internal, like
Mhm.
restlessness and unsettledness and lack of peace. I mean,
Mm.
Yep.
really, peace comes when we are aligned with our path. Fulfillment comes when we are aligned with our path. Fulfillment doesn't come with a certain number in the bank account or a certain title after our name. It comes with the alignment with our path. And you're right, Danae. Our society doesn't talk about that. There is no recognition of that.
Mm.
Have you read the book, The Mutant Message from Down Under, about the
Mm-mm.
Aborigine tribe in Australia?
No, but I wrote
God,
it
it's so
down.
but one of the things that, like, I read it years ago, like, I don't even know, maybe 15 years ago, but it one of the things that it talked about was how they would choose their quote unquote birthday. They would self-nominate a celebration moment when they felt they had walked through a threshold of evolution.
Mm.
Mm.
They would be like, we're celebrating because I just went to the next level of evolution for myself. And
I love
I
that.
I'm claiming that and we're gonna have a party. You know, my daughter is I have two daughters, one now almost 15 and one 12. And we moms decided to create a initiation experience around their walking over the threshold into womanhood, as
Mhm.
evidenced by starting their what I like to call their moon, but
Mhm.
their
Mhm.
period. So we created this whole event for them
Mhm.
that and then they got to walk over this bridge and there was symbolism
Mhm.
and ceremony, and women from the community came and held space for these young women. And the age span, we had a kahuna there, an elder, a Hawaiian elder there. We had little sisters, 3 4 year olds, and all of them would offer the girls gifts of celebration and symbolism. And it was just like this, yes, more, like, and we should do it throughout our whole lives, not just at I think it's one of the reasons why we put so much emphasis on the wedding,
Yeah,
because there's this
totally.
part of us that craves these types of rites of passage and this
Mhm.
ceremonialism. And it really speaks, I think it speaks to our souls on really deep levels. And so we put all this pressure on the wedding day. It's like the little girl dreams of the wedding day because it's the one thing she sees,
Mhm.
feels like and then the funeral. My God, we got the
Right.
wedding day and the funeral. So I'm in complete agreement that it can feel like we're floundering
Mm.
without these anchor points, and we can start creating them. That's what I love too. Like we, as as people recognizing there's a lack for this, we
Mhm.
can start doing it, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. We can do it in our little local communities like we did here on Maui. It was just some moms coming together saying, this is important. We never had this. We don't know what we're doing. We're just gonna like come up with some ideas and
Yeah.
try it. And it was amazing and beautiful, and it will be an annual thing now. So now the women who the young women who have walked over the threshold will hold space for the girls next year to do the same thing. So
Mm.
yes.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm listening to this podcast right now that's kind of like rocking my core called Witch. It's actually a BBC podcast, and there was one whole episode where she really dove into like the most common witch that we know, at least in the Western culture, which is the Wiccan, practicing Wiccans. Anyways, they were talking about the wheel, the calendar, right? And the way that they broke it down, and there are the ones that most of us know, the equinox and all these different things, but spring and fall, and but what I thought was really profound in that part was they were talking about the guy that was going through and was talking about, oh, then we celebrate this. Oh, and then in this, we celebrate this. And he went through it and she goes, wow, there's a lot of celebrating.
Yes.
And he goes, yeah, because we need to celebrate. Like
Mm,
part of the loss of initiation is not just that we feel like we're floundering and we don't have containment. It's also we have lost our ability to celebrate, right? Like being joyful and just looking around and saying, "Oh, I celebrate the longer days of summer." That's
Yes.
it. Like, let's celebrate that. Oh, I celebrate like how we're moving into winter. And so like that is going to be more of a let's go inside and get cozy and the darkness. Like let's celebrate that, right? And he was just talking about the importance of celebration as part of like the human psyche, like the need and how the disconnection from that celebration and like what that does to us. And that just stuck out to me because I thought you're right. It's like the birthdays, maybe, we get our birthday every year, which some celebrate, some don't. We
Yeah.
get the wedding, we get the funeral. I mean, what else do we really get to celebrate like day by day, moment by moment, you know?
mm,
And this to me again, this is where astrology can be simple. Like we can
Yes.
get lost in the technical and the language and all that, but we don't need to. Actually, to me, the way that I work with astrology in my own life is very simple.
Mm,
It It's walking outside and seeing the sun and saying hello and thank you, and may I be as
mm.
radiant as you today.
mm,
It's seeing Venus rise in the horizon and just the awe,
yes. Awe. That's it.
beauty. And when you again, it's the intelligence of this cosmic curriculum that we've been so disconnected from, but it's so easy and simple to come back to. It is the rhythm of nature. It is that there's a daily rhythm, there's a monthly rhythm with the lunar cycle, there's a seasonal rhythm with the year. And then throughout the years, there's these cycles like we've been talking about that Pluto's going through, Mercury's going through. They're all going through these cycles, and we can be aware very simply and celebrate very simply, invite the energy of that star, planet, cycle, season, day, whatever it is, into our life. And it brings magic alive again. Like
Yes.
when we were little, like before the first Saturn square, which happens at 7. And any parent knows like at 7, something happens where they kind of go out of fairy tale. They
Mm,
kind of like go out of that like, oh, everything's amazing. I'm in this like world where I can get lost in play forever and ever. And like something happens where that seems to shift around 7, but that's the first Saturn square. So
Mm,
that's the first like kind of coming into form that happens, and like matter, like the density of matter. It's like, oh, I'm not still connected to the divine and like just floating over, I'm like, I'm here in a body, and they become a lot more self-aware. So, but we still have that. We still have that access, and we can reconnect with all
mm,
of it. And again, to me, nature and astrology for me is really just like the stars and I used to think nature is just like trees and plants
mm.
and the earth. But then there was this moment, it sounds so I feel kind of embarrassed saying it, but there was a moment of like, oh, like stars and the planets are nature too. And like it's in the same way. So
mhm.
connecting with them is also a way of connecting with nature and natural rhythm. And
Yes.
I agree, our psyche craves it. And that's why, like, when autumn comes, there's this like, ooh, like there's a change. I live in Hawaii, so there's not much of a change. I have to like create the change
Mhm.
in my home. Like we have different scented candles and we have different colored flowers and I play different kinds of music because there's a part of me that's so nostalgic for that,
Mm.
what the fall brings, death and rebirth and going inside and being a little more internal and cozying up with my soul and asking the questions. And so yes,
And
longing.
sweater weather. It's
What's that? Sweater weather.
sweater weather.
Yeah,
Sweater weather.
exactly. Celebrate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt so emotional a couple of times when you were talking, first of all, because I have a little boy who's 6 and I'm like, no, to the
I know. It's like I did the same thing. I looked at you and I made a little like, oh no.
I
but
know.
but beautiful, because I think that there's such a way that you're speaking to how we can hold space for that continuum of that, and you as a mother holding that ritual for your daughter. Like, I want to take a moment and pause just to honor what that is, because so few of us had that. I think it made me emotional because I do think that there's a way that like our psyche is so hungry for that way of being ushered into these like next phases of life and becoming. And I remember I'm the most introverted person ever. And when I had a baby, I had this hunger for other women and to be like held in the containment of like what is happening, like I had never experienced before. And I was like, I don't know, but there's got to be like a mama's group or something. Like I need other women. And I think that it's amazing how we will find a way to create rituals in our way back. And to me, it's like the renunciation of the feminine, and like that all of what you're describing is so much of like we reach this phase where, because I didn't feel like maybe even 5 years ago that I was really connected to my feminine circular energy in the way that I am now, but it was like something happened in these transits that you're talking about that it was like, no, I got to get back there, and it was just like an intuitive pull.
Yes, I remember sitting in New York City, this like high-powered Capricorn, worker bee lady.
Same girl, same.
And I heard the words divine feminine.
Mm.
I went, huh, I wonder what that is. I have no idea what that is, but that sounds interesting. And it was almost that sounds interesting that I could say would be one of the threads that I began to pull that led me to Hawaii, that led me to this process of transformation, that led me to where I'm at now. But it was just that like, ooh, divine feminine, that sounds cool. I wonder what that is. So and I think that happens to us, it's like ping, for whatever reason, someone says something that it's like, I always think of it as like this cosmic highlighter for me. That phrase is highlighted and it stays with me and it almost haunts me until I follow it, you know? So yes, it is very feminine and it is, and if you pan out astrologically, so we're in these cycles, right? We're in these yearly, daily, monthly, seasonally, annually, and then bigger cycles. It's like cycle upon cycle. So in terms of the ages, we have been in the age of Pisces for 2,600 years. Not a long time. A lot of that was external authority, like putting faith in God and government outside of self, religion outside of self.
Yeah.
We are in a transition between the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. It's a very long cycle, right? It's long. It's not like, oh, we're now in the age of Aquarius. It's like we're in that transition phase, which to me, whoever chose to incarnate at this time, because I believe we choose.
Yeah.
You all are badass. Like in a
That's
period
right.
of time that is seriously tumultuous. Like we're not settled into the new age that we're going through as humanity. We're not at the mature phase of the last age. We're in the middle. Like we're in the tidal wave period, So, and I think we came here, we're like, I got this. Like we have a role to play in the navigation of this way forward. But it is so much about, first of all, coming into balance within ourselves. We've externalized the masculine. We've gone, okay, government, daddy.
Yep.
Okay, priest, daddy. We just like put this masculine thing out there. We're bringing it inside. right?
Right.
We're bringing it inside, but then we're also balancing it with this feminine aspect of ourselves, which has just been completely pushed down and made horrible and, tarnished. So our image of our feminine is under repair.
Mm.
And we're each coming into balance with it and learning to value it. I don't think we're going into the matriarchy. We're going from the patriarchy. I don't think it's helpful to us to be like, okay, we're going into the matriarchy. No, we're coming into balance. Either one of them is out of balance,
That's
right?
right.
So we're coming into balance and we're bringing that authority that we put out there, putting it back inside, recognizing the God within us.
Mhm.
And that's so Aquarian. And that's so Age of Aquarius. It's about the humanity. It's about the power of the human. And I mean, wow, we're going to see things in this lifetime that we probably never thought, even in our wildest dreams, could be possible.
Mm. Buckle up, y'all.
I know.
Let's do it. Let's
In it.
go.
Everyone
love it.
here, everyone listening,
the
y'all chose to be here, right now. So you're here with us.
You heard Amanda. You're the badass warriors. Love it.
This Hawaiian kahuna that I got to study with when I first came to the Big Island. Like I said, I like landed in another land from Manhattan to the Big Island of Hawaii.
Mm.
It was like, talk about Alice landing in Wonderland. I was just like, oh my God, what's going on here? Anyways, one of the guides that came to help facilitate my journey was this Hawaiian kahuna. And she would always say, tie your slippers on tight. Slippers are like the flip flops, right? Tie your slippers on tight. Like things are going to get crazy. Just you got them on. So that's definitely where we're at.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah. So if you feel like things are crazy and tumultuous and
They
uncertain,
are.
upside down, they really are.
You're
And
not wrong.
not wrong. And you are resourced. You came
Yes.
with the resources to navigate this time in your own unique and beautiful and wonderful way. And nobody else can do it the way you do it. And that is the invitation of your lifetime.
Oh my gosh. Amanda, you're our people. We could just like hang out and talk to you all day. So like but I want to be mindful of our time and get into the lightning round of questions. I like lost my train of thought. I'm in the fog, just like geeking out talking to you. So the first question that we ask all of our guests is who, excuse me, have been your greatest teachers, mentors, people along your path that have influenced your journey up to this point?
Well, obviously astrology and the cast of astrologers I've gotten to interview throughout the years. Like I think maybe I might be the person on the planet who's interviewed the most astrologers,
Mm.
had the most conversations with astrologers. So they to me like make up my Yoda, you
That's
know.
amazing.
My partner who I'm with right now, who I've been with for almost 6 years, he is just such a guiding light. Like he holds this frequency that if I hadn't had him in my life throughout 2020, through my Neptune period, I think I could have at certain times gotten lost in the fog,
Mm.
because I there were certain rabbit holes that I would allow myself to go down. He'd just pull me out. He'd pull me out and be like, remember, it's about joy. Remember. And that to me was just massive. So there's been a lot. And Natasha Alter, the one I had my first reading with, my God, nothing would have happened without her presence in my life. So there's been a lot, but yes.
I love that. So we also talk about the concept of flow just being this point, right, where something comes into alignment and you could just kind of blink your eyes and hours go by. But we're always curious what flow is for you.
Ooh, I love this question.
Mhm.
Well, for me, flow needs a container.
Mm.
So I don't think of flow alone. I think of flow. So I think of sort of like dancing and how to have a structured container enables the dancing,
Mm.
the beauty of the expression. So what I try to do in my life is create a container or a structure that enables me to drop into that flow state. It's kind of like the uh, discipline enables freedom concept. And if you look astrologically, it's all there. You can't have only Saturn and you can't have only expansion in Jupiter. You got to have both. And when they work together, it works really well. So for me, I need a container and structure around my days in order to drop into that flow. And then I get into flow so easy in times like this. I love writing. I have a Gemini moon, so like I find so much comfort and joy in words,
Mm,
whether they're spoken or written. Um, yeah, that's where I go into my flow state.
love it.
And what breaks your heart?
Oh God, what breaks my heart is when, ooh, God, that question just
Mhm.
went right through to my heart. When people are unaware of their beauty and
Mm,
how magnificent and how there is a purpose to their life and there's a reason that they're here and there's a gift that they have to give. When I hear about like young people taking their lives, it's just like, I mean, maybe that's okay. Like maybe their soul came here to experience just a short amount of time.
mm,
But if it's because they didn't know how much they mattered, and if it's because they didn't have the chance to understand like their own beauty and uniqueness, that breaks my heart.
mm,
Like every time.
Mm.
mm. Yeah. And then we'll end on a little bit of a lighter note.
Oh, sorry, that was like instant
No,
waterwork.
we
Oh.
go there. We go there.
Yeah.
Last one is a little bit lighter. What is your favorite food? We bring you down, we bring you back up.
Oh God, I love sushi. Just
I mean, you are in Hawaii, so that tracks. That makes
I
sense.
Yeah, well,
love
you
sushi.
got it.
I really do. I really do. But my diet is quite simple. I'm not. I wish I was more inclined towards cooking and the beautiful art that is. But
Mm.
I keep it really simple. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, you like this hour has just been such a delight. You are such a magnanimous and expansive soul. Even spending this amount of time with you, I feel like it feels so clear why you do the work that you are doing in the world. And I know what a gift astrology has been for me. So thank you for what you have decided to do. I think it matters so much. I think there's so much healing that comes from the conceptualization that we are held, like you said, that we do matter and here's why and how, and there's it's written and there's evidence of that. And I really appreciate the work that you do. And I really appreciate you exposing us to you because you are just an absolute treasure, sister.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same about you too. My
Mm.
team nominated your podcast as one of their favorites. I Like, what do you listen to? What do you like to tune into? And you were like at the top of the list. And so
Mm.
when I got to tune in, and I was like, oh God, oh well, yes, I understand why they love this. And yes, we're totally tribe. And it's I'm grateful for the work you do as well. I know it takes a lot to like put yourself out there and
Mm.
make yourself available and share your heart the way you do. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And before we jump, I want to give everybody an understanding of who Astrology Hub is, what Astrology Hub is. Like, can you give them a taste of what? I mean, obviously, Danae and I have dabbled, and I've actually known Astrology Hub since like way back in the beginning days, which is kind of, I guess, kismet in a way to now be sitting here having this conversation with you. Cause I remember being in my New York City giant office and sitting at my corporate desk and being on Astrology Hub. And so now here we are, which is
Aw.
hilarious.
Oh,
But can you tell us a little bit about it just so the audience can know like what they're getting into?
yeah, we're a platform for very high quality astrological guidance and
Mm.
education. So we have a free podcast you can tune into. We made a gift for your audience if they want to like track those life cycle transits that you can get at astrologyhub.com/life cycle.
Awesome. And we'll throw all that in the bio too. And
Yeah, great. Okay, and then
yeah.
yeah, and then we have our platform. So if you are interested and curious about having a reading,
Mm.
you can go and take the little quiz and get matched with an astrologer, and then have a reading. That can be
Yeah.
30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. But we have a lot of different types of astrologers who love to answer different types of questions.
Mm.
And it's an amazing place to start. It's where a lot of people start with astrology because before that it's kind of hard to believe. But when
Mhm.
someone looks at your chart and is speaking your language, it's like, oh, maybe there's something to this. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think,
Oh,
like I said earlier, that was such a big thing for me. I think I love the way that you come in to Astrology Hub, you have this quiz where you're like, no, 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 be specific. Like, what is
Mm.
it that you are really trying to get out of this? And when you're kind of forced to answer those questions up front and it funnels it down to here's the person that we think is best for you, and here's their background, here's
yeah,
like what they've studied in, here's why we think that makes the most sense.
yeah.
It just felt like I went into it feeling so confident, you know?
Mm.
Yes. And to make that easy for your audience, we'd love to offer a discount on their first reading too. So a
Ooh.
percent discount, and we'll give you the discount code that you can put in your show notes.
Mm.
So exciting.
Amazing.
Thank you
Well,
so much,
thank you
Amanda.
so much, Amanda.
Thanks to
We
you.
will
It's such a pleasure.
Mm.